Hey everybody, this is Jacob Stoops, and we are back with episode 55 of the Page 2 podcast. And if you don't know me, I am a senior SEO manager at Search Discovery, and I am joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Jeff Luella, technical SEO at the New York Times Wirecutter division. Jeff,
Hey, howdy, hey.
you did it again.
I did it again. I'm a
I
hey,
think
howdy,
that's
hey
your
guy.
thing.
Yeah.
Yes, Jeff is the Al Borland of our show, and no, we are not rebranding to name our show Tool Time. Although we do
SEO
talk
tool
about
time.
SEO tools, right? I'm sure that they've copyrighted that. So we have a very special episode today, and for any technical SEO gurus or people that want to learn about SEO automation and just generally nerding out, this is going to be a great episode. And that is because we have Mr. Hamlet Batista, CEO of RankSense. He's here.
Excited to be here. Yeah, thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, we are so excited, and we were talking off air and wondering if it was a good idea to talk Python, because you talk about Python all the time, and we're just wondering, like, do you get tired? And we're not starting the interview just yet, but we were debating, like, maybe he gets tired of talking about Python. Maybe he wants to talk about other things. We don't want to keep him in a box if he wants to talk about other things. But
I think it's his middle name.
Right.
Hamlet P.
Batista.
Yeah.
You should, if you don't already on Twitter, you should just put that as your name for a little while and see if people still recognize you.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that there is such a thing as talking about Python in the context of SEO. It's more, Python is the canvas, right? So it's what allows me to talk about different problems that I could use Python to solve them in a faster way that it will be very difficult to solve without it, manually or with off-the-shelf tools.
And yes, that was my first instance. We talk a lot about imposter syndrome, and I'm a technical SEO, but I am not a Python master. So very quickly, I was corrected to understand that Python is really about automation, and it is a mechanism, right? Not a strategy, right? A mechanism to make SEOs go faster. And for those people that like The Office, you're going to be listening to Hamlet explain Python, probably to me like I'm a 5-year-old, because I know nothing about it.
Yeah, and I like, what you mentioned, because, do you get tired of talking about Google Search Console, right? Or talking about Google Analytics, or talking about keyword research, right? So those are concepts, those are foundational building blocks that enable you to do things, right?
Yep.
So that's how you do it. And people, but why would you want to be doing this Python when I can use Screaming Frog, when I can use SEMrush? Look, we're all using different tools and they're fantastic, but there is always a piece of the work that we have to do, right? So we run a tool, get an Excel file, run another tool, and then we have to go in and start playing with Excel files to do the work, right? That work that you're doing in the Excel files is where you can replace that work with Python scripts, right? So another, is, probably you guys are familiar with macros, right? So old school if you're doing work in the office suites, you have repetitive things that you're doing, going in the menu, doing stuff like that. And you can write a macro because this is something that you're doing repetitively. And if the macro can save you a couple of minutes here and there, it can add up, right? So that's how you start thinking about it, right? It's like advanced macros that you can do when you're thinking about Python. Python is about automation. It's about customized automation. You figure out something and you say, okay, now that I know how to do it, let me describe it to the computer so the computer can do it. But that's typically what a developer does when they're building tools. but you don't have to be a developer to do it. You can say, look, I can plug in different tools and do amazing work that you couldn't do otherwise.
Yeah, let me tell you, I think have been a couple of times, not just this week, but this year, where I probably could have used a little more automation in my life. Anyways, before we jump into the core of the show, which, if you don't know, is origin stories, backgrounds of people in the SEO industry, and just understanding what it is like to be an SEO day to day, not just straight knowledge sharing, but what it's like as the person behind all of the knowledge sharing, what we go through, trials, tribulations, successes, and failures. One of the things that we are going to start doing, Hamlet is involved in it, and we've been I wouldn't say involved from a creation standpoint. We're certainly not the people behind it, but we've been supporters behind the scenes, and we wanted to show our support very publicly, and we want to start doing this. So this is going to be our first live read in the history of the show, and that live read is going to be for an organization called United Search. Definitely something we're not, I just want to clarify and caveat that we are not being paid to promote United Search. This is something that it has been for us a focus behind the scenes. It's not been something that we've widely publicized. We've maybe mentioned it a handful of times publicly, but it is something that we think it is time for us to more publicly support, and this is a great mechanism to do it. So yeah. Here it goes. Here comes the live read. We'll see if my practice and my 50 plus episodes of pretending to be a radio-like host have worked out well. So, are you looking to break into SEO conference speaking, but not sure how? Are you feeling that you're not well represented within the current SEO speaking circuit and want to change that? Well, you're in luck. We here at the Page 2 podcast would like to take the opportunity to let users know about United Search, a new organization in the first of its kind SEO speaker accelerator dedicated to ending the implicit bias in SEO that keeps BIPOC, LBGTQ, IA+, and women in the margins of our industry. Their credo is diverse SEO equals better SEO. United Search offers mentoring advice from people with real-world practical SEO experiences in order to give students the skills they need to be able to deliver an amazing presentation on any stage in the network they need to land gigs, all at no cost to the student. Sounds pretty amazing. So how does this work? It's actually pretty simple. United Search connects a cohort of the best pitches they can source with top mentors in their subject matter. After working with their mentors to develop their talk, they will host a live stream event where the students get to present to SEO experts and receive positive, constructive feedback. Graduates of this SEO accelerator will get the benefit of top-notch mentorship, public speaking training, a video reel, lots of positive feedback, as well as a foot in the door to help find and land speaking gigs and access to an amazing community of SEO professionals. Now, what does this mean actually for our podcast? So as somebody that is, in our case, a little bit more informally sponsoring the podcast, and as an advocate and an evangelist for United Search as an organization, what we're doing is committing to regularly showing stats that illustrate our commitment to diversity on this podcast. Now, that is for us going to come through in the types of guests that we book, and of course the types of organizations that we support publicly. And in doing so, we've made a pledge to diversify, meaning that 60% of our guests will come from underrepresented groups, including women, BIPOC, BAME, LGBTQIA+, as well as representation of people with disabilities and those who are 55 years and older. If this sounds of interest to you, please visit unitedsearch.org to learn more about becoming a student or mentor, or visit them on Twitter at search_united. How did I do, guys?
That's a,
How was that?
you're doing great. And I want to mention that I'm one of the mentors, so I'm really privileged to be helping with this initiative.
Yeah. So before we kind of get into your background, I guess, how did it come together? How did you become a mentor? And is there anything, I guess, that you would want to say that maybe I didn't hit upon?
No, it was just, Dan, we had met at speaking events, SMX West, I think, start of the year, and we've been connected for years, right? And sharing each other articles, and he invited me to contribute. Say, hey, sounds awesome. I'm a big believer in diversity. I come from Dominican Republic. I'm Latino. I'm Black. And I think I've been really privileged, when we talk about my origin story, to be given the opportunities that I have, and that's a big motivation to give back and help others that haven't been given those opportunities.
So that's actually a good segue. So you are, and I'm as we do show prep, we dive into people's bios. So you came to the United States in 2010, but before that you were in Dominican Republic, right?
Yes.
So I guess tell us about your background, and maybe how you grew up, how you got into marketing and SEO. Were you doing SEO before you came to the US or after? And just kind of take us through your origin story.
Yeah. So my background is engineering. So I studied engineering in Dominican Republic, and I worked over different roles. I've worked as a system, primarily in IT. So, sorry, I worked as a system administrator for a big telecommunications company in Dominican. My first language is Spanish, but I got the opportunity by working at that company, a big telco, the equivalent of Verizon here in the U.S., to be trained in the United States. So I took trainings here to develop, being able to manage an early stage internet service provider in the Dominican Republic. And as an engineer, right, I hate inefficiencies. So I always been driven to, hey, look, this stuff is too slow. It's taking too much time. I don't like the way. Let me learn how to do it faster. How can I make it more efficient? And I want to tell you a story that is going to be from my times at the ISP, which is we were in charge of the domain name system at the ISP. The domain name system is what translates domain. When you type the domain, type Google, it translates that into IP addresses. Probably familiar with IP addresses, and that's kind of like a phone book. At an ISP, you have to set up those entries in the phone book. Every IP, what is the name, you have to set up. Back in the day, we're talking about 96, 97, right? It's a long time, right? There was like, people figure out, that you could spam, you can send massive emails, and it was just a disaster. And a lot of ISPs, we were caught with our pants down with this stuff because it was just overwhelming, the amount of spam that was going on. And we had to start researching, how do we, prevent this from happening? And it involved setting up records in the DNS to prevent that from happening. I'm not getting into technical details about it, but the idea is that I had a team, people that graduated from me from school, and we were on this class, but I was always the most inquisitive, reading about, how to do things automatically. And I was teaching them how to edit the files, to do it one at a time manually, so they could get familiar with the editing. And they were like 2 weeks in, and it was gonna take them like 6-7 more weeks to finish the work. And we needed to do it immediately because it was crashing this, we needed to solve that problem with the spam. With the spam, we were creating blacklists. Needed to create them quickly, So when I saw that it was happening, I said, look, guys, let me take this from here because we need to do this immediately. Like, what do you mean you need to do it immediately? Because they're taking it for it's taking them weeks, and it's going to take them even more weeks to finish it. I wrote a script, and I populated all the tables immediately, right? And when they saw that the work that they were doing for weeks, I did it in a few minutes because there was an urgency, right? They were not very pleased because you can imagine, right? And I said, no, guys, and you remember the Karate Kid movie, that he was learning to clean the cars, and then he said, I said, no, I was trying to teach you the mechanics so that you build the muscles to be able to do the editing. And they didn't talk to me for a couple of weeks or more because
you were the person, or they were the people ringing you up for your groceries at the cash register, and you were the automatic machine that's doing their job 10 steps behind them, so to speak.
Exactly. So basically, you understand. I bring you that story so you understand why automation is something that I've been so passionate about. Right. Fast forward, still in the Dominican Republic, I got to work for an online gaming operation in the Dominican Republic that I saw them, they hired me from the ISP job and they doubled my salary because in the interview, it's probably for another, the story is interesting on that. They were trying to challenge me with questions and then I ended up challenging them. Said, look, guys, this. And then when they couldn't answer it, they said, no, you're hired. So they hired me and gave me twice the salary. And I saw when I was working with them, I come from an ISP, super organized, big companies, MBAs, everything with quality management, methodologies for quality management, reporting, and all that stuff. All this organization, and you're coming from school that you're taught that this is the way that you do, operate in a business. And I see this company breaking everything that I knew. Like they're making every single mistake in the book, but they're making obscene amount of money because they were early in the internet with that gaming operation, tens of millions of dollars, and they were just scrambling. So to give an idea how bad it was, they had servers to support their websites, and the servers were crashing every hour. And you know what the solution they had for that? Because of all the traffic they were getting, they hired somebody just to sit next to the servers and restart them every time they crash. That's how bad it was. And with that approach, I said, I can't believe that you guys don't even know how to operate something properly, that it's not crashing, and you're making so much money, right? And then I said, wow, that gave me the entrepreneurial insight that, look, it's not about, being, 100% precise. It's not about the theory and all that stuff. It's about the opportunity, right? These people, they're doing everything wrong, but they're seizing on an opportunity that has a small window, and they were capturing it any way you want, right? If you've seen this ad from the lottery ad, right? That people, everybody's going crazy because the dollars are flying, and then he's waiting for things to calm down. Well, by the time he's going down, there's nothing left because people are just seizing the opportunity. So that contrast of seeing the shift from all the organized things working at the corporation and the chaos and these people making so much money, right? I said, wow, this changed my perspective. So I joined that company and we helped them put it organized. Right now, when they were organized, they put everything, they were doing a lot even better. And the founders, they ended up being billionaires in that company. It's just to give you that how crazy that story is. They're the founders of Party Gaming. You can look for them. Ruth Parasol was one of the founders. These are people that interviewed me back then, right? So while I was working at that company, the marketers, a marketer left the company and he said, look, I'm doing really well. I'm doing this pay-per-click thing and I'm promoting Viagra and I'm making all this money. I said, what? he wouldn't tell me how he was doing it. I said, okay, let me find out. So I started researching why he was doing so well doing paid search. It took me a few months. I figured out how to do it myself. Figured out how to do this paid search as an affiliate marketer. And you're talking about 2002, really early. Google launched 98. And we were doing, I was able to make this out. I said, look, I'm gonna leave that company and make at least what I'm making. Then I double and triple what I was doing. And that's how I took the risk. And because they were paying me twice the salary I was making at the ISP, I saved half of it. Right. So I said, I have enough, runway to try this, see if I could do it. Now, the cool thing is that when you do a paid search, you're always competitive focused. So looking at all the competitors and you're managing budgets, you said, so I'm looking at one of my competitors showing up in the organic listings. And I'm spending money on paid search. And I see this is a guy I'm competing on paid, and he's showing up in the organic listings, and that's free. How he did that, right? And I knew that he was making good money because we were making money on paid. So I said, wow, I need to figure that out. That's where my engineering background helped me, because I saw that he was doing well. Started reading on this SEO. I said, look, let me read. Oh, the Google guys, they actually wrote a paper that describes how the search engine works, how, it was a project in the school. So I read that paper. And when I read the paper and read all the math and everything, that it was not a big deal for me because of my training, I found that idea of the anchor text on the links. And we're talking about 2002. And I said, wow, this is such a powerful and interesting concept. Let me try it. Once I understood it, I tried that out. And it worked incredibly. We got my sites to rank as well really high in Google. And back then, Google was powering Yahoo, and Yahoo has like 15 listings in a page. It's coming up in position like 12 or something. It's making like $15,000 in a month. When we're talking about back then in the Dominican Republic, which money's like 3 times worth of what is here in the US. So it only lasted for a little bit of time because it was black hat stuff, which is what was happening back then. But that showed me, wow, there is something here, right? So that's what I want to focus and understand this and do it properly, understand how to do it better, because there is, economic opportunity. And it's also something that is interesting, that I can connect what I know from technical with this marketing stuff. And that's kind of like, how I got into the SEO space back then, and very successful with affiliate marketing.
I've got a couple of questions. At what point did you decide to come to the US, and was there, I guess why did you come to the US?
Yeah, so that's another interesting story. So if you think about it, right, in my country, it's a paradise. People use it. You go on vacation. It's a tropical island. It's beautiful, and you're making that kind of money. It's amazing. And I live a really good life in the Dominican Republic while I was doing that. Right now, the challenge was affiliate marketing. It's a very challenging business because the barrier of entry is too low, right? So it doesn't take long for everybody, because everybody's just looking at what everybody's doing. It's just copycats. They copy everything you're doing. And then when everybody's copying, the pie shrinks, right? So it's just, you have to be reinventing the business even 6-7 times in a year to stay in business, because everybody's just copying, copying everything. So that's not a sustainable business. So I did it successfully for 3 years or more, very, very successfully. So that I said, look, why don't I build software? Because all this stuff I'm learning can turn it into software and build something that is more sustainable. So I package what I'm learning and sell it to other people, right? Now, that would sound great in theory to do it from Dominican Republic, but it failed dramatically. So when I tried to launch a software, an institute software, and you'll find my interview in Moss. Somebody went from Moss and interviewed me in Dominican Republic about it. It failed dramatically in Dominican Republic. I saw being in Dominican Republic as one of the main factors why that initially my second business is software, when I tried to launch it from Dominican Republic, failed. A big part of I had to interview 100 people to get a good software developer, right? So the resources, the talent, far more difficult to get for this, right? Because it's a completely different focus in that industry. And also my market, it's very difficult, right? So in terms of being a developing country, finding the right talent. And eventually, because of that failure, right, I had to start from scratch, right? So pretty much all the money that I made, most of it as an affiliate marketer, I lost it on that business. And another learning is that I didn't have a business environment of when you can talk to other people, learn from other people, just trying to do everything from scratch with no interactions, learning or schools or business, support or anything. All the ecosystem that you have here doesn't exist in the Dominican Republic. So it's impossible. So while I was traveling to the US, I still wanted to stay living in the Dominican Republic, but because, an opportunity opened up 2009-10 was a company that was they were trying to do the same thing, but they didn't need the expertise. That opportunity opened up for me to come to the US and join that startup that was trying to launch software, but they had all the backing that I lacked. So I said, wow, this is probably the opportunity for me to come to the US in a really good position, or really good, my family and everything, and try this again in a few years.
That's great. It's interesting because I knew you moved over, from the Dominican, but never knew the background of why. But looking at your history and just knowing you for a little while, it seems you are very entrepreneurial at heart. And like, was that something like that happened as like a kid? Like, were you always trying to discover that as like, were you always trying to build stuff as a kid, or was that something that you grew into like after college or something like that?
Yeah, so I think that I discovered it. I didn't know it, right? I knew that as a kid, I used to be, I love video games, playing video games, and I used to be really good at negotiating trades with the games. I started with one game. I ended up with 14 just by trading them with other kids, right? So somehow I had that ability to persuade others, right? With intelligent conversations and all that stuff, right? But for me, right, the entrepreneurial, I realized it when I felt like I didn't want to be constrained to doing one thing, right? Because I see that, and it's in the team that I work with, a lot of people enjoy, okay, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to be. I enjoy doing one thing that I want to be just focused on that thing, right? That's not my case, right? I enjoy doing a lot of different things. I can be doing the same thing for too long. And when I had the jobs, right, I feel constrained. I say, okay, this is great. I'm doing this thing, but I don't want to continue doing it. I want to try something else. When I was at the ISP, I was doing this for a little bit of time, and then I got tired. I said, look, I want to be doing, something else. 2 or 3, I want to be, being able to shift and try different things and see what I learned is something that I felt even when I moved to the US. When I moved to the US, I moved with a really incredible job, with great paid and everything. You say, well, I don't have constraints. Well, I have the constraint that I have to follow, whatever idea, the direction of the CEO of the company perceives that has to be. And I have disagreements about it, about what will be, this or that. I said, look, doesn't matter that I'm getting great pay here. I don't believe in this path that you're taking. I believe in this is what I want to be doing. I'm gone because I want to be able to shift and do what I feel is what I, enjoy the most. And if you think about it, I'm in the ideal position right now in my job because it's challenging to bring a business to a level of success that you can, have people and they can do whatever. But I delegate what I don't enjoy. Right? I have the privilege to say, look, I want to spend the time writing this Python code. I wouldn't be seeing myself doing that in my previous job. Couldn't do it. right? I said, why you be sharing that secret sauce and all that stuff from, they would never let me do that stuff, right? I can do it, right? I
Yeah.
can, if I want to do the sales, I can do the stuff. If I want to do account management, I join in the calls with our clients. That is why I realized it. That's the path that I want to enjoy. And I get really, offers for, oh, come and work here, work there. And say, look, I'm, I'm unemployable. Should I tell people I'm unemployable?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, once you get that level of being able to develop a company and develop a product, um, you kind of become unemployable unless like Google comes and buys you. But but you see, like when Google comes and buy a company, like those leadership after they have their 2
You don't
years,
laugh,
3 years, they don't
exactly.
last because they want to go and do something else, like someone like Kevin Rose. I'm not sure if he's still there
Mhm.
at Google, but like when they bought one of his companies, he went over to Google, and it's just like at that point you're just transitioning, and then I know in the back of your head you're planning your next move. So
I think the
Yeah.
interesting thing, I've never obviously been an entrepreneur or developed a business or developed a startup, but I did before I worked at Search Discovery come from a company called startups.com doing the SEO there, but that gave me a lot of exposure to the perspective of startup founders and people running businesses, and all of the people running that company were serial entrepreneurs who had founded and failed, founded and exited many times over, and are now kind of giving their advice. And I think that there is something to be said for either having kind of a germ of an idea that develops into something bigger and the passion that goes into that, or wanting to be your own boss and the person kind of dictating the direction in a direction that you believe in, or seeing an opportunity and trying to capitalize on it. And I think for me, the hardest part in terms of thinking about going out on my own, for example, as a consultant, has been the level of risk, because it is very safe to be working for another
Yeah.
a company. It is very safe financially, but I would think the opportunities for exponential growth are limited or limiting. And there are times when you don't necessarily agree with the direction of the company, but because you either move to another company, or your options are, okay, well, go into business for yourself. And for me, that's always been kind of um, very scary, very scary.
No, and we need different type of people in the world. I think that entrepreneurs make a very small percentage, probably single digits, because it's
Right.
crazy. I tell you, it's a crazy journey, right? It's insane. When I look at, the hardest times in the different businesses, they're stressful. What I'm saying? They're really, character defining moments when you want to give up. When I had that failure on my second business, never forgot, I had tears, I cried. I built a business my most successful business was the first one that I had in the Dominican Republic. I had a very successful business with, a lot of staff, managers, and all these, people, and we saw incredible success. Going to the second one, a dramatic failure, right? Put a pause, right? But then I said, look, there is risk in everything, right? If I take a job, I have the risk of getting fired, right? There is a risk. There's always risks, but it's how well prepared you are to manage it. Because if I don't have the confidence that I learned from running the other businesses, I wouldn't be taking risks, because you're putting money on your line, you're putting savings, you're putting, your credit, you're putting your reputation, not just with, the financial aspects, but with people that trust you, that they're going to have a job tomorrow, right? So those are big responsibilities, right? But then you think, the way that I look at it is, look, I've been really lucky to be given talents that are valuable in this specific, time frame that it was my chance to live, right? And it is a waste not to take advantage of those talents and benefit others, like I benefit myself, benefit people that work with me, benefit people from the community. And that's the way I look at it. I said, look, I doing something and I'm enjoying it. I living a good life. Um, it's incredible the difference you guys have been living in a developing country. It's night and day, right? So you have to be worrying about electricity being on all the time. That's not something that even crosses your mind here. Or having AC all the time, on all the time. In Dominican Republic can't have that,
Yeah.
right? Or things worrying about security. I want you to understand that in Dominican Republic, you have to have reinforcement steel in all the windows so people don't break in into your home. I don't have to, sometimes we leave the door, unlocked. The car's unlocked,
Yeah.
right? We walk across the neighborhood with my kids. We're not worried about, something's going to happen, right?
Yeah, I think not to get hyper political, and it looks like Jeff froze. Jeff, you froze. That's our first freeze during a recording.
I'm here, aren't I?
Not to get hyper political, but I think especially on the heels of the election, which is always a great time to kind of take stock of how our country is going. And this year there has certainly been a lot of upheaval in the United States. And as bad as things are or seem to be here, I think hearing the perspective from somebody that's been and spent a lot of time outside of the United States just reinforces to me how great of a place and how lucky we still are, despite the fact that we
100%.
certainly have many opportunities to be better. So there are a lot of people I feel like that maybe don't appreciate how good we have it. And it's really good to hear perspective, to know that my problem yesterday, that I didn't have internet for an hour and a half, is really trivial, completely trivial. And we are incredibly lucky people.
I was setting up YouTube TV the other night, and it was right when YouTube had their outage. And I'm like yelling at my TV, like, what did I do wrong? Why is this not working?
Right.
And then my daughter was on her iPad and it wasn't working on her iPad. And I'm like, wait a second. So it might not be just YouTube TV. And that's when I found out YouTube is down, and 4 million kids around the United States were probably screaming at their parents at that time. So yeah, it's definitely one of those where a blessing, right? Of, something you just can't control where you're born. And sometimes it's just, luck of the straw at that point.
So
yeah,
cool.
Let's get in. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, I was going to say, I was going to kind of follow up with that entrepreneurial stuff. But when we look at, it seems like going through your history, there's like the building blocks of RankSense, where building upon every time you kind of started something new or started thinking about like how you were going and developing. Like one, is that true? Or two, like how long did it take for you to really grow like RankSense, like from the time that, not the day that you started, but from before that? Like, were you actually like building that plan in your head before you actually like, dropped everything and started that?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. It's been a really interesting journey because when I started RankSense software while I was in Dominican Republic, and I started as a desktop software. I got an interview in Moss. It was an analytical software. That's the one that failed big time in Dominican Republic. When I joined the startup in New York, 2010, right? They were trying to do the complementary part, right? So it's implementation, trying to implement SEO. And 2010, it was still really early to do that. So we started doing that with reverse proxies, doing the implementation of a company called Altroic. And we had really large brands using that technology. But that implementation, when they reached out to me, the reason they hired me was that they hired me as a consultant to review what they were doing. And I told them, look, guys, sounds great. You have investors, you have all this stuff, you get great clients. This stuff that you're building, it's not going to work. I told them before they launched, I told them, yeah, it's all impressive what you're doing, and you sign up all these clients. When you launch it, it's gonna fail dramatically because you're doing the opposite of what you should be doing. They were creating duplicate content instead of addressing it, because they were creating mirror sites, looking into. And then I said, look, it's gonna fail. And they were talking to a bunch of people. I was the one that told them that it was gonna fail. When it failed, precisely what I told them, they wanted to hire me because I was the one that was telling them that. And then I told them, this is what you need to do to improve it, right? And they saw incredible results, which is one of the big brands was Home Depot, and they were using IBM WebSphere. IBM WebSphere was creating 100 duplicates per page.
I know all about that.
And I said, you know about that, right? So, and I told them, look, what you need to do is canonicalize it, right? Which is an obvious concept now, but 10 years ago, they were like, what? Nobody's talking about, everybody's just talking about keywords. I don't care what people are telling you or what they want. I'm telling you that the problem, they're not the doctors. I'm not, asking, patients for what I'm going to, I'm telling you that duplicate content is a big problem for them. Have them put the canonicals, and that's going to be a massive improvement. And they didn't believe it. And they told, hey, look, put this canonical on your pages to our pages. Think about it. They put the canonicals on all these duplicates to the pages that were mirrored on the site, and they were paying us some commission on the results of all the products. Imagine, boom, that skyrocketed the revenue, the millions of dollars, telling you, per year, one client. And they saw that. And then the funniest thing is that I told them that the reason why they were seeing the results is because of what we did, and they didn't believe it. They were so used to be failing so much that when I told them, no, this is working because of this is specifically what I told you to do. No, I don't believe you. Home Depot, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know. And I said, you think that if they see that, extra $1 million in extra revenue coming in, they are gonna say, oh, it's because of this Altroid guy. It's not because of something else. They're not gonna be other executives that want to take credit. If they're telling you that that's because we're adding it, they're not making it up. It's real, right? So I had that challenge, that they didn't even believe, because people were not asking for duplicate content. People were asking about keywords, and they didn't want to follow it. You can imagine I didn't want to last long on that, So I said, look, and I had a C-level position on that company with a, massive, salary and everything. And I said, look, I tell you how to do it. We got it to work. The company's, and I told them to do other things. They want to listen. So I said, look, I'm going to set up on my own. So I left before I had the green card. So I applied for the green card, came in with a special visa. I applied myself for a green card. And I was in the process of getting it, there was the risk that I might not get it, right? I did get it about a year or so later because of the type of visa green card it was. But I left, I said, look, I don't believe the path you guys are going. Everything looks great, but I'm going to leave on my own, right? So I had the non-compete, so I respected it for a couple of years or so. So we're doing consulting. Great friend of mine, Stephen Spencer, helping him learning about that side of the consulting and SEO stuff. So I launched the third business, which was Hamlet Batista, right? So that business, I focus exclusively on enterprise e-commerce, mid-market enterprise companies, taking these ideas that I learn about with the big companies that we're doing in Australia, and finding success, right? Finding different things that consistently work on that niche of e-commerce sites with inventory. And at the same time, right, I'm writing scripts to automate a lot of the different things. So I said, I'm gradually putting things together with the funds coming in from the clients that I'm doing the consulting. And then I think it was 2014, 2015, I started, now that I had I was doing the agency to do that stuff for, had a number of clients doing that stuff. I started putting together the software, the different pieces of the software, the implementation, obviously the most, challenging, built it for about a year or two. We had our own reverse proxy network doing that stuff. And And with the clients that we already had, we started with them and then gradually, evolved. And then I saw that as again, it's building blocks, right? So I said, okay, now I got it to the point that I had an Alteryx. So then I added real-time analytics. So I said, now I want to also not just do the implementation, I want to do also the visibility of what needs to be fixed, which was what I did in my failed business. And then added the automation component to it, which is something that we have done in the last year or two, right? So now that I can execute implementations of SEO, how do you add automation to the equation? And then you think about when you're talking about people about something that doesn't exist, right? You're talking about SEO automation. People don't think it's possible. People don't think, it doesn't exist. It's not possible. And who are you to be the one to do that stuff? So you realize that you need credibility. You need to start from, before I'm even talking about products or stuff like that, or, I have to build a name, a credibility that makes people not even question that you're able to do something, right? And at the same time, there was an opportunity. There was a problem that we had when we were trying to get the merchant account with PayPal, and they declined it because we were SEOs. And I said, why? So I saw an opportunity to say, look, maybe I can do something about this thing and build a movement. And I said, oh, Python. Maybe that's, I can use Python to do those two things, build a credibility for the community, and empower the new generation, while at the same time building the credibility that enables everything else, right? Because a lot of times in business, we only think about, oh, I just need to put an ad, I have a product, put an ad, people will listen to it and then buy from you. No, it's not as simple as that. People buy from reputation, right? They need reputation. You need trust, reputation. Everybody does due diligence. You guys, when you're talking to me, you do due diligence about, let me see who this guy is. Same thing with every place that I speak or write to, or companies when I'm working with big companies. Everybody does due diligence. And you don't learn that in business schools, that you have to invest time in building a track record that connects people to whatever you're presenting. Oh yeah, well, you're presenting me, I can see why you can do it, because I can see your reputation, your trajectory, that's going to lead you to do this, right? That's how you probably got your job at the New York Times, right? They're not going to just hire you, out of the blue without you having a track record for that.
Right.
Right.
I just gave them a lot of money, and then they. Just kidding.
Exactly. So does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely.
Makes total sense. So, in thinking about maybe not just e-commerce, but automation in general, what are the biggest ways that you feel like automation and or Python as an extension of that automation can help an SEO do their job?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. And you think about what's been automated so far, right? In terms of the package tools that we have access to, the wonderful tools. It's mostly data gathering and reporting, right? So to do our jobs, we need to gather data, we need to run automated analysis, and we need to do reporting, right? But there's more stuff than that. That's what traditionally computers have been able to do. Data gathering, reporting, storing in databases, running reports. Now what's happened is, which is really interesting, and I tell you that I've been incredibly lucky, because I started learning advanced machine learning, deep learning. I think it was 2008 or 2007, I still remember. Really, when it was starting. So Coursera launched some studies, some courses, and I took them. I got certified, and I enjoyed it a lot because it connected so well with my engineering background. I was able to learn it really quickly. But then I started looking at how can I apply this to SEO, right? And what's happened is that computers, it was great timing because NLP and all that stuff is growing at a crazy pace. And computers can now solve problems that require perceptive abilities that computers didn't have before. What I mean by perceptive abilities, we're talking about vision, right? We're talking about understanding, language, right? We're talking about sound, noise, all that stuff computers couldn't do before, right? And now computers can see a picture and tell you what's on it, read a paragraph, summarize it, tell you what the article is about, right? And the best part is that all that stuff is open, including the code. It's open, which is incredible, right? So you think, you have to think back in the time, right, where everything is, oh, can you use this? Can you use that? It's covered with patents and stuff like that, and everybody was just, really protective of what they were doing. Microsoft, Google are investing massive amount of money, like Facebook, all these people, and giving it back for free. Their code, TensorFlow is open, PyTorch, Facebook, all this, every research, everything, they're releasing it openly. And why do they do that? Right? Think about it. They're paying top scientists over $1 million salary to build these systems that they're releasing for free, where everybody can use them, right? Without having to pay a license or anything, right? It's crazy. If you go back 10, 20 years, nobody would think about that. Some microsystems will never do something like that, or IBM, right? And they're doing it, right? And then I said, why is this happening? Why is this, first of all, it's amazing because we can use it. If you see a lot of my articles, is sharing that. Beyond the code, it's just thing that I'm leveraging research and code that academics being paid with grants and being paid with high salaries are sharing and making it available for free. I understand it enough that I can adapt it to a business need that you can monetize. And like I can do it, everybody that's reading my articles can do the same thing. Now think about why is that, right? If you were to guess, why would you think Google, Microsoft, Facebook are giving this stuff for free? Right now I'm doing the interview to you, right? Why would you do that? Why would you think?
To collect data. I don't know.
Close.
To collect data so that they can make a
collect
little scuttle.
Well, but if you download it on your computer, they're not going to be able to collect data on that.
True.
Right. So let
build
me
more engineers.
I'm sorry?
Build more engineers that are into machine learning and
exactly. Yeah. So essentially, if you think about it, right, machine learning engineers is a scarce resource, right? They need more people. They need more. They need to broaden the market of users of their cloud infrastructure, right? So Facebook doesn't have a cloud service that they can monetize this directly, but all these companies, they need engineers that they can hire. They can join their ranks, right? So what's happened is that because of the sharing and the value of what you're sharing, you become a thought leader. You become a brand equity in the community of machine learning. Where do you think people, when they're graduating from schools, they want to apply for these jobs, right? So they're capturing these talents, right? All these big companies, they're capturing the top researchers that invented a lot of the technologies that we're using.
So what are some top things that we can automate and can't automate?
So now going more concretely, right? So you can automate, and I'll share you, examples from my articles. You can automate even content creation. You can automate taking an image and writing a caption, writing an alternate text of the image, automatically. I have an article where I can show you, I can take a page and write a structured data for the page, right? It's crazy, but it's just to show you. I can use computer vision, take a snapshot of the page, and have the computer label elements within the image that I took from the page, a screenshot, and say, oh, this is a product name, this is the image of the product, this is the price. Think about how crazy that is. So I can use that. Take those elements that I call bounding boxes and translate them into structured data, right? Hands-free. No software right now in the market can do that, right? So when you're using structured data, You have to manually label things. You may manually label where this is, where that is, and then use it at the template and it will do it, right? That using computer vision. And it's not theory. I have an article that shows you that, right? I have an article that shows you I can write titles and descriptions as well at scale automatically using summarization. So I can take the text of the page using an ML model, create a summary, an abstractive summary that describes the page in summary, right? There are other things that I haven't covered yet, but they're also possible. For example, generating images. You know that you have, it's a challenge to get images for your articles when you're writing them. You can actually describe what you want the image to be. And there's a model that can take that and create a new image that doesn't exist, right? Think about how that, right? Can do that stuff, right?
Wow.
You can have the computer write content, right? You can describe the content that you want, have the computer write it, right? Just give you an idea. The one article that I wrote I think it was a couple of months ago, FAQs, right? So think about, I can take text from support emails, right? That is not public information. Take text from support emails and have the computer write questions and answers based on the content of those emails. And I gave a talk at State of Search that I use the same technique that I'm telling you, but using reviews. So think about, you have a category page. Most of them don't have content, and you can add an FAQ based on the reviews of the products of that category by creating an FAQ for that page, including the structured data, right? And basically, your imagination is the limitation now. It's as crazy as that. And I would say, wow, why is not it? It's the problem is that the computers can make embarrassing mistakes. So as exciting as it is that computers can do this and they can do, write the content, all that stuff, when they get it wrong, and it's still, something that happens, with certain frequency, not, 50% of the time, but, 20, 30%, computer's going to make mistakes. The mistakes the computer makes are not the mistakes that a human makes, which means that it can be really embarrassing. You probably have seen examples where a computer confuses a cat with something else completely different, right? Just changing a pixel or something, the computer says, oh no, that's not something completely. It can be because there's a high risk, right? So you use this at the New York Times and you say that could be very embarrassing.
Right.
An article that you put something that can be offensive, right? So the human in the middle is really critical, because the main problem that we're having is that computers, the generation that we have in these models, they don't have semantic understanding of what they're doing. They only have syntactical understanding. They can create really impressive prose, images, separate, but they don't have they don't have semantics and context. And I'm excited to see some research that is showing that might start changing next year, because they're combining visual models with textual models, and they're seeing some, that the visual elements can constrain the nonsense that the computers can generate, right?
And we're going to see it with chatbots too, where, I know they always have every year like a chatbot competition where people will talk with a chatbot and you try to figure out which one's a human and which one's a chatbot. And I think last year was the first time the chatbot won. But it's getting better and better where I'm afraid that I'm not going to actually talk to humans in like 10 years and just talk to a computer.
So the thing that's coming to mind is you see a lot of tools in the industry, especially big SEO platforms, not RankSense necessarily per se, but other tools that are pitching clients on the idea of SEO automation, right? And not just automation in the sense of tactical automation, which is what it ends up being, but autopilot, right? Where you can just turn on the tool and your SEO is taken care of.
Right.
And right. Yep, that's them. That's one. They're not the only one, right? But that is one. And there are clients that have tried that, and it's great for what it does, but it's super tactical. And I guess what I'm hearing is that a lot of the application with automation right now, as it stands, is to some degree still tactical, and there still needs to be the strategic layer, which is human still, that sits above that. And not only that, I think one of the biggest advantages, I guess, of, and I don't want to say it like this because it sounds really stupid, but being a human is the understanding that you have of the business goals, and like you said, Hamlet, the context that a machine, at least right now, may not necessarily have that, be having that understanding in a way that it can apply it to the tactical stuff that some of this automation is solving. But what it does sound like it solves is it opens up a lot of time and opportunity for SEOs to not spend all of our time hunting down these things that through whether it be RankSense or another system can be automated, so that we can spend our time doing other things, theoretically maybe more important things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to mention, that our philosophical approach to automation, right? So that's the ideal scenario, right? So where the machine is doing all the work and you're just collecting the checks. And I used to joke with the banks when I tell them, oh, what is RankSense? Oh, imagine that the machine does all the work and you're just sitting in a beach and you're just collecting the checks, just checking the bank account and everything. And that's ideal. The problem is it's still far from reality, right? And I realized that, especially in marketing, the most successful businesses, they push people to do their best, right? So they extract the best of people, right? So they enable them. So and technology is not, the technology is going to replace what I'm doing and I don't have to do the work and I'm going to lose the job, right? It's more about how the technology gives you superpowers, right? So that's kind of like fundamentally, right? That's where probably we are different with, Bright Edge or other companies, is that we believe in superpowers, right? Is that how can I enable you? What you will do if you will be able to do something that will take you, uh, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? Doing in a fraction of the time, right? And doing better, not just doing it faster, but doing it better, or doing things that you couldn't do before, right? And I mentioned that we're different because that's where we are evangelizing Python, right? So I'm not saying, oh, we're gonna do everything. We're not keep everything within the realms of the software. No, we're enabling you to learn Python, because then your creativity is the limitation. You're not going to have to wait for us as a company to come up with another solution for this and for that, because I'm giving you the tools to learn it, and our technology just becomes the canvas of your creativity. Now that you have an idea for internal linking or site architecture, or you have an idea for pages that you want to create, or some research that you want to do, or one specific audience that you want to target, I can account for every specific problem or opportunity that different people in the community are going to come up with. And we're talking about diversity, right? Diverse people from, I talk from SEOs from all different places in the world, right? In the community as well. And they're going to be facing different challenges and things that I was just talking to Danielle, and she was talking to me about the interesting finds feature in the mobile search that I was not even aware of, right? I wasn't even paying attention to that stuff. If I'm not even paying attention to that, I'm not going to codify that in the tool, right? But because she learned Python, she was able to automate it, right? Now what we can do, in our tool is, now that you come up with this idea, we make it easy for you to try it on the site, and the CDN without involving developers, and give you the feedback of whether that idea that you have actually turns out to be successful or not, right? Because that's what ultimately, RankSense, our technology is about a feedback loop, right? Try things, not even involving developers, just populating sheets, see if they work and doing them incrementally. And that's what we're going to remain. And we're going to, trying to do a bunch of different stuff and encouraging and having the community where everybody's trying things, writing code for different things and making it available and easy to use for people like you that don't write code, but know enough to run that notebook, put the sheet that you have, put the inputs, and get the output that you want, where you don't have to wait for the software vendors like us to build those capabilities into the tools.
And I love developers and God bless them, but I like the phrase not having to involve the developers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
Steve Ballmer would be upset.
Right, right.
Steve Ballmer would be upset when he went on his rant.
Yeah,
developers,
Right.
developers.
Yeah, no, but I tell you, I was interviewed by Cloudflare, where we build our technology on top of, and it was asking, look, I use this analogy that what happened in the DevOps community, right? So remember, I come from an IT background. I was a sysadmin. I was, deal with security and all that stuff. So that's what I could figure out that solution. But what happened with what I told them is, look what happened when I was a system administrator. I was managing manually, 612 servers, some Solaris, some microsystem servers that I had, Unix servers that I had to log in and manage. The same person, that doing my job now, how many they manage? Thousands, hundreds or thousands of servers. Why can they manage so many? Because there is now that it's called DevOps. So there is the combination of managing the traditional servers that now you don't have to manage them manually, because you can define configuration files, and that's how you manage a fleet of servers that have the same setup, right? And everything is versioned in a control system. So now they deploy servers virtually, right? Not physically. There's the physical servers and the virtual servers. Because they're virtual, you can deploy them and put in different roles, and they auto heal automatically. Now, because of the virtualization, it enabled automation in that industry, and because of the automation, they can manage so many servers at once. But you think that Cloudflare or Google, they don't have people managing the infrastructure? They need to have the people managing the infrastructure. It's just that the people managing it can do far more than they could do before the software and the automation was in place. And I told, Zach, who was doing the interview, I said, look, this is the same thing that happened with this industry of IT, with systems and managing servers. It's also going to happen on people that have to optimize websites. And SEO is one area, but there is, conversion rate optimization. There is usability. There's a lot of other things that, the professionals are going to be able to do at scale, right? They're going to be able to manage at scale. If you're in an agency, that's what we're focusing on, agencies. Manage, initially, right? You can scale it across, all the clients, right? So you say, oh, I want to try this tactic, but I don't have to do it manually with one client. I can try it across all my clients, or a number of them that makes sense, right? And see if that works, right?
Yeah, if you've seen that, I think came out like a month ago or so. It was a Google like documentary about search. I think it was called Trillions of Questions.
Yeah, I
And
love that one.
you just see when they walk down their data centers. And like, so early on, my first job on all this, I worked for a Sun Microsystem reseller. So I got certified and things like that, even though I really never used them as much. I needed it for the web stuff, but the company had two splits. Looking at that and just how our server room was like 4 servers, and it was a pain in the butt to deal with them compared to one guy walking down a row of thousands of servers, and that like this is his home. He owns his data center, and there's how much information's coming in and out of them, how much information's being stored on the servers. It's mind blowing, and it's just mind blowing anyway. Just like take one part of Google, like YouTube, how much video is being uploaded to those servers every second. It's insane.
Exactly. But you see, right, what's happening is, the automation is a superpower for people, right? It's not, about replacing people, because you still have more. The people are going to be there. They can make decisions. They understand nuances, stuff like that. But in order to scale, it's just you need it, right? How are you gonna, you're gonna hire so many people to be able to deal with that stuff, right?
Yeah, and that's
Absolutely.
the future of warfare now. Those data centers.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's move from warfare. Let's get close to closing out the episode. So we've been doing something in season 3 called, we haven't really named it, but just soliciting questions for our guests ahead of time via Twitter. So we've got 3 questions today. 2 I'll call a little bit kind of funny, playful, and 1 more serious. And basically, what we'll do is we'll go through these questions. Hamlet, you'll respond, and I will not pick, but you guys can select who we thought the best question was, and that person will win a free Page 2 podcast sticker to put on their laptop or any other place that they choose. And then we will close out the episode with some words of advice. So first question from season 3 guest, Jairus Mitchell at an internet robot, also one of the best Twitter handles that I've come across.
Our giant.
Yeah. So in these hashtag uncertain times, how do you manage to be such a kind, supportive human?
Yeah, no, I saw that. Thank you very much, Jared. I appreciate it. And yeah, what I'm saying is, I feel really privileged and honored to be given all these opportunities that I have, living here in the US. All this, having a business and having people and all this, having an amazing community. I just feel, grateful that, I have to give back. I feel like I have to pay it forward, right? I think, and also as an entrepreneur, I had to go through very difficult times, and you learn to be tough, and you understand it's difficult. Not everybody can go through that. So providing support is, I think, it's in my nature, right? We might imagine that, with my team, when we have been through really rough patches, to keep everybody, motivated is, I think it's just part of my nature.
And then Dan Liebson at Dan Liebson. So also a Page 2 podcast alum. Why didn't he choose to come to the best coast of the US, which I guess in his case is West Coast?
Yeah, no, and I was with Dan at SMX West. Wonderful beer, Dan, when we had that after the show. Well, in my case, it was very simple. My wife, she didn't want to move in. She wanted to stay in the Dominican Republic, primarily because, Latinos, we like to be really close to family. Everybody, it's a different culture. Everybody wants to be close. And, the only way I was able to convince her to move was because we will move close to her relatives, her family, her brothers and sisters, and a lot of them are here in New Jersey. And she has a lot more family here than we had back in where we were living in Dominican Republic, So family came first to make sure that the missus was happy with the move.
Happy wife, happy life. It's very, very, very true.
Yes.
Our last question, this is now second or third question for Wade. Wade, I will say, has already won a sticker, so I don't know how that factors in. Maybe he'll potentially win an extra one. So Wade Saunders, my search discovery colleague, Jeff's former colleague, his handle is at Heels4Corners, huge basketball fan. How much trust do you put in third-party tools for traffic estimates, and where do these tools have gaps in their data?
Yeah, so and I posted, I saw that on Twitter. I posted a link to an article that we wrote about research that we were trying to do for some forecasting for a client. And the sad situation is that when you use third-party tools for traffic forecasting, and then you have access to the properties that you are actually forecasting, and you compare the data that you get from them, And when you get in analytics or search console, stuff like that, is the discrepancy is massive. That can actually change decisions. So I think that it depends on what you're gonna do with the information, right? If you're gonna, like in my case, I was trying to do a forecast and try to provide a direction of do this or that based on the outcome. I wouldn't use them for that, for big, important decisions that require accurate data, right? I think but I use them and I see value in when I'm looking for opportunities and gaps, right? So I look for content or keywords that we might be overlooking that competitors are showing up for. So that's what I would, that's what I would be looking at them for, right? But um, the traffic specifically and trying to do forecasts or even trying to use, I've seen clients with a crazy idea of using third-party tools, traffic to measure progress when they have access to analytics. Why are you going to use a third-party tool to measure your performance? And you can look at your analytics data, right? I
Yeah.
wouldn't use it for that.
So in honor of Alex Trebek, who passed this week, another 2020 awful thing. Who's the winner? And I'm going to do my Jeopardy music in the background. Ready? Da, 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 da. So we've got Jairus, Dan,
Yep.
Wade. Da, 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 da,
I think Jairus' question was pretty good. He's been Wade's is definitely more thorough, but he already won.
Yeah, he already won.
So I think between Jairus and Dan, which one do you think, Hamlet?
So Dan doesn't have one, right? Let's give it
No,
to Dan.
yeah. Let's give it to Dan.
Yeah.
All right, Dan,
is
if you're listening to this episode, you are the new winner and the current champion of the Twitter questions for this week. So be on the lookout for your Page 2 podcast sticker. It comes in blue, pink, or green. Very nice color combinations. So Jeff, you want to close this
Sure.
episode out with our final question?
Yeah. So we ask all our guests, like, what words of advice would you give to a person just getting started in SEO?
I'll say learn by doing, right? I think you will think, oh, learn Python. No, I think you want to be a generalist, get exposed to different areas, learn, the business, learn your clients, and try things, right? So when we're training people on our team, we task them to creating a website by themselves, putting together do all the hosting, do all the put yourself in the shoes of the client that you're going to be helping with your SEO, right? So build a website, put the pages, put the content, go through that journey, and you're going to learn a lot. And now when you have that, you start looking at the content about how to do SEO, stuff like that. You're going to feel more empathetic. I think being empathetic on clients is an undervalued and very underrated, but very valuable skill. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah,
Great.
And then when you're trying different things, you're going to find something that you're really passionate about. Hopefully some of you are going to find that programming in Python it is, and then you take that, detour. But start as a generalist so that you get exposed to different things, and primarily, understanding clients and being empathetic about them is very, very, very valuable.
But I agree. The empathy is a very underrated skill, and some might call that kind of a soft skill of SEO, which I think is sometimes equally as important as the more tactical and strategic skills. It's just being able to understand your client. And I know as a crusty old sea dog of SEO for the last 15 years that sometimes you have a tendency to over time become a little bit jaded and lose some of that empathy. So if you're somebody new, just know that there will be the urge over time to lose a little bit of that empathy, and try to avoid it, because it is a very important skill that is very successful when it comes to driving strategy, helping them solve your problems, or if you're on the agency side, things like contract renewals become very important. And if your client trusts you and you've shown the correct amount of empathy and respect back towards them, you're likely to have a long relationship versus the alternative.
Yep.
So Hamlet, thank you for coming on. We certainly appreciate your time. And where can people find you?
So you're gonna find me more often in Twitter at Hamlet Batista. And you can guys also check my website, RankSense, www.ranksense.com. And feel free to also connect on me on LinkedIn as well. Search for my name, Hamlet Batista.
And Hamlet has lots and lots of interviews, really great articles, definitely very visible in the industry, and just about, if not every single thing that he puts out there is of the highest quality. So really, really happy to have you on your show. And for those people in our audience, you're going to be listening to this on Monday, so have a great week. We are off to the weekend because we are recording this on Friday. So for us, have a great weekend.
Yeah, have a great one, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.